If your cichlid tank looks calm right now, there's a good chance you're already late. That sounds extreme, until you realize most tanks don't fail when something obviously goes wrong. They fail when everything still looks normal. Clear water, active fish, a filter humming like it's doing its job. That calm feeling is the most dangerous stage because it convinces you nothing needs attention. Once you understand this, calm tanks will never feel harmless again. I learned this the hard way. By the time I realized something was wrong, 3 fish were already gone, and every explanation I told myself arrived too late. Bad fish, bad store, bad luck. That belief feels safe, and that's exactly why it destroys tanks. Confidence delays action, and delayed action is what kills cichlid systems. Tanks don't collapse loudly, they collapse invisibly. By the time you feel certain something is wrong, there's usually nothing left to fix. Fish start dying one by one. Algae appears without warning. The water clouds for reasons you can't explain. And almost everyone says the same sentence. Everything was fine yesterday. That sentence never appears at the start of a failure. It shows up near the end. It feels comforting because it removes responsibility. If everything was fine yesterday, today's loss feels random, accidental, out of your control. Your brain prefers bad luck over bad decisions because bad luck doesn't demand change. Decisions do. That's why this sentence quietly ends so many tanks. Not because it's wrong, but because it stops you from looking back far enough to see where the system actually broke. The real problem usually starts much earlier, with a single illusion that tricks almost everyone: clear water. You set up the aquarium, fill it, turn on the filter, and stare at an empty glass box. It doesn't feel alive yet, it feels unfinished. So fish go in immediately because clear water feels safe. That calm isn't stability, it's false stability. And false stability is the #1 reason cichlid tanks collapse. I remember coming home one evening and standing in front of the tank longer than usual. Not because something looked wrong, because nothing did. Fish swimming like always. Water crystal clear. The filter making that steady sound that convinces you you've done your job. That moment should scare you more than any obvious problem. When something is clearly wrong, you act. When everything looks fine, you relax. You lean back. You tell yourself you've done enough for today. That night, you didn't test anything. You didn't really watch behavior. You didn't notice which fish was losing space and which one was holding territory just a little too hard. You just thought, good, it's stable. And that thought is lethal. You trusted the calm. You trusted clear water. You trusted the noise of the filter more than the silence of the tank. 2 days later, the first fish was gone. And that's when your brain rewrites history. You replay the scene and say, but everything looked fine. And it did. That's the trap. The tank didn't change that night. You did. You stopped paying attention. You didn't fail because you ignored a problem. You failed because you assumed there wasn't one. And if you're honest, you've done this before. You've stood there, nodded, maybe even felt proud of how clean it looked. That isn't confidence. That's autopilot. And autopilot is how most tanks die. An uncycled tank never announces itself. Ammonia doesn't smell, it doesn't change color, and it doesn't warn you. Fish don't die immediately either. They breathe a little faster, eat a little less, act normal enough that you ignore it. You tell yourself they're adjusting. This is the stage where most tanks are already damaged beyond recovery, even though nobody realizes it yet. Days later, one fish is gasping at the surface. By morning, it's gone. When that happens, blame spreads everywhere except where it belongs. Weak fish, bad genetics, a bad batch. Almost everyone avoids the real cause because it means admitting the system was unstable from the first decision. This single mistake ends more aquariums than almost any bad advice because the crash feels sudden, even though the damage started days earlier. African cichlid tanks make this worse because they hold together longer than they should. They tolerate stress longer, crowding longer, bad decisions longer. And that tolerance creates confidence. Confidence creates delay. Delay turns fixable systems into permanent losses. They look stable while the foundation underneath is already breaking, which makes the collapse feel random when it finally happens. By the time cichlids finally show you something is wrong, the system has often been unstable far longer than you think. And this is where people relax even more, even though the worst part hasn't arrived. The same illusion continues with water changes. You run the tap, watch clear water fill the bucket, and assume it's safe. That assumption quietly destroys tanks. Chlorine doesn't always kill fish immediately. Sometimes it does something worse. It wipes out beneficial bacteria first. Nothing looks wrong afterward. Fish keep swimming, water stays clear. That's why the mistake gets repeated. Days or weeks later, fish start dying in ways that feel completely disconnected from the water change that caused it. By the time you notice the pattern, the damage has already moved through the entire system. Lighting works the same way. Bright tanks look healthy to humans, so brighter feels better. In reality, constant brightness removes cover, increases territorial pressure, and keeps stress switched on. Cichlid aggression rarely starts with fighting. It starts with staring, tracking, pressure that never releases. From the outside, it still looks peaceful. This is the moment most people never connect to what happens later. One fish slowly loses space, eats less, loses color, weakens, and you say it again. It was better yesterday. Feeding feels generous, but generosity often pushes systems over the edge. Fish always act hungry. Overfeeding doesn't cause instant disaster. It builds waste, weakens immunity, and creates disease pressure that shows up later, when it's hardest to connect cause and effect. Then there's the test kit illusion. You say the numbers were fine, but test kits only show a snapshot. Old reagents, bad timing, human error, or testing after damage has already started all lead to the same sentence. The parameters look perfect, but the fish still died. That sentence ends hobbies. Maintenance mistakes hide behind responsibility. Large water changes and aggressive filter cleaning feel productive, but stability keeps cichlid tanks alive, not cleanliness. Rinsing filter media under tap water doesn't feel reckless, but bacteria don't recover on your schedule. When they're wiped out, the system resets whether you plan for it or not. Many tank failures begin inside the filter days before any fish shows symptoms. Oxygen problems work the same way. As stocking increases and waste builds, oxygen demand rises. Bubblers help, but surface movement matters more than most people realize. Fish don't suffocate suddenly. They weaken gradually. Weakened fish rarely recover. Power outages turn that weakness into collapse faster than people expect. Heater failures are worse. Heaters don't fail gently. When they fail, they usually fail on. Fish don't jump out randomly. They jump because the water is cooking them. Most people only learn that once. Skipping quarantine feels harmless until it isn't. New fish arrive stressed. Stressed fish carry disease. Adding them directly to a display tank risks infecting everything you already have. By the time symptoms appear, the system is already compromised. The hardest part is that the right moment to intervene rarely feels urgent. It feels optional, like you can wait one more day, one more feeding, one more water change. Tanks aren't saved by perfect timing. They're saved by early discomfort. Acting when you're not yet sure something is wrong. Waiting for certainty turns quiet problems into irreversible ones. Tank size ties everything together. Smaller tanks feel easier, but they're far less stable. Temperature shifts faster. Chemistry swings harder. Mistakes hit harder. Larger tanks don't make you immune. They buy you time. And time is the only thing that allows correction before loss. Most tanks don't collapse when something goes wrong. They collapse when nothing looks wrong and nobody wants to interfere. These failures aren't sudden. They're built one reasonable decision at a time. Most people never notice the moment it starts. Some notice it too late. A very small number notice it early enough to stop it. The tank didn't fail you. You stopped noticing it failing. If your aquarium looks fine right now and this makes you uncomfortable, that discomfort is the warning most people ignore, right before it becomes permanent. Every tank develops patterns. Where food appears, how fish move, which paths feel exposed or protected. One fish claims ground, another gives way, another learns to wait. Your job is to shape the tank so waiting doesn't quietly turn into decline. Don't build tanks to look impressive. Build them so pressure can drop and stay low. Cichlids don't calm down because you want them to. They calm down when the tank finally gives them a reason to. And if this changed how you see your setup, stopping here leaves the system unfinished. These patterns never exist alone. The next video connects directly to this one because stocking levels quietly decide whether pressure ever drops at all. If you stop here, you miss that connection. Watch the next video. And if this way of thinking feels uncomfortably familiar, you already know what the subscribe button is for. I'll see you there.